Alright, today I have for you part 2 of Epic History TV's Russian history series. I've already done part 1 and I've already done the Russian Revolution video, so please go check those out and let's just dive into this one.
In 1612, Russia was in a state of anarchy. They called it the Time of Troubles. The people were terrorized by war, famine, and plague. Up to a third of them perished. Foreign troops occupied Moscow, Smolensk, and Novgorod. But then, Russia fought back. Prince Pozharsky and a merchant, Kuzma Minin, led the Russian militia to Moscow and threw out the Polish garrison. Since 2005, this event has been commemorated every 4th of November as Russian National Unity Day. The Russian Assembly, the Zemsky Sabor, realized the country had to unite behind a new ruler and elected a 16-year-old noble, Mikhail Romanov, as the next Tsar. His dynasty would rule Russia for the next 300 years. Tsar Mikhail exchanged territory for peace, winning Russia much-needed breathing space. His son, Tsar Alexei, implemented a new legal code, the Sabornoye Uluzhenie. It turned all Russian peasants, 80% of the population, into serfs, effectively slaves, their status inherited by their children and with no freedom to travel or choose their master. It was a system that dominated Russian rural life for the next 200 years. The head of the Russian Orthodox Church, Patriarch Nikon, imposed religious reforms that split the church between reformers and old believers. It's a schism that continues to this day. Ukrainian Cossacks, rebelling against the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, recognized Tsar Alexei as overlord in exchange for his military support. It led to the 13 Years' War between Russia and the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth. Russia emerged victorious, reclaiming Smolensk and taking control of eastern Ukraine. A revolt against Tsarist government, led by a renegade Cossack, Stenka Razin, brought anarchy to southern Russia. It was finally suppressed. Razin was brought to Moscow and executed by quartering. The sickly but highly educated Fyodor III passed many reforms. He abolished Mesnichestva, the system that had awarded government posts according to nobility rather than merit, and symbolically burned the ancient books of rank. But Fyodor died aged just 19. His sister Sophia became Princess Regent, ruling on behalf of her younger brothers, the joint Tsars Ivan V and Peter I. After centuries of conflict, Russia and the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth signed a treaty of eternal peace. Russia then joined the Holy League in its war against the Ottoman Empire. Sophia's reign also saw the first treaty between Russia and China, establishing the frontier between the two states. At age 17, Peter I seized power from his half-sister Sophia. Peter became the first Russian ruler to travel abroad. He toured Europe with his Grand Embassy, seeking allies for Russia's war against Turkey, and learning the latest developments in science and shipbuilding. The war against Turkey was successfully concluded by the Treaty of Constantinople. Russia gained Azov from Turkey's ally, the Crimean Khanate, and with it a foothold on the Black Sea. Peter made many reforms, seeking to turn Russia into a modern European state. He demanded Russian nobles dress and behave like Europeans. He made those who refused to shave pay a beard tax. Peter built the first Russian navy, reformed the army and government, and promoted industry, trade, and education. In the Great Northern War, Russia, Poland, Lithuania, and Denmark took on the dominant power in the Baltic, Sweden. The war began badly for Russia with a disastrous defeat to Charles XII of Sweden at Narva, but Russia won a second Battle of Narva, before crushing Charles XII's army at the Battle of Poltava. On the Baltic coast, Peter completed construction of a new capital, St. Petersburg. The building of what would become Russia's second largest city among coastal marshes was a remarkable achievement, though it cost the lives of many thousands of serfs. The Great Northern War ended with the Treaty of Neustadt. Russia's gains at Sweden's expense made it the new dominant Baltic power. 4 years before his death, Peter was declared Peter the Great, father of his country, emperor of all the Russias. Peter was succeeded by his wife Catherine, then his grandson Peter II, who died of smallpox, aged just 14. Empress Anna Ivanovna, daughter of Peter the Great's half-brother Ivan V, was famed for her decadence and the influence of her German lover Ernst Biron. During Anna's reign, Vitus Bering, a Danish explorer in Russian service, led the first expedition to chart the coast of Alaska. He also discovered the Aleutian Islands, and later gave his name to the sea that separates Russia and America. After Anna's death, her infant grandnephew Ivan VI was deposed by Peter the Great's daughter Elizabeth. Ivan VI spent his entire life in captivity. Until age 23, he was murdered by his guards during a failed rescue attempt. Elizabeth, meanwhile, was famed for her vanity, extravagance, and many young lovers. But she was also capable of decisive leadership. In alliance with France and Austria, Elizabeth led Russia into the 7 Years' War against Frederick the Great of Prussia. The Russian army inflicted a crushing defeat on Frederick at the Battle of Kunersdorf, but failed to exploit its victory. Meanwhile, in St. Petersburg, the Winter Palace was completed at vast expense. It would remain the monarch's official residence right up until the Russian Revolution of 1917. Peter III was Peter the Great's grandson by his elder daughter Anna Petrovna, who died as a consequence of childbirth. Raised in Denmark, Peter spoke hardly any Russian, and greatly admired Russia's enemy, Frederick the Great. So he had Russia swap sides in the 7 Years' War, saving Frederick from almost certain defeat. Peter's actions angered many army officers, and he'd always been despised by his German wife Catherine. Together they deposed Peter III, who died a week later in suspicious circumstances. His wife Catherine became Empress of Russia. Her reign would be remembered as one of Russia's most glorious. Epic History TV depends on donations from...
Yeah, so it's like I was saying in the first video, Russian history is dark and often depressing. We see that some of the great things that were happening with the construction of St. Petersburg and the Winter Palace and all these things is done at the cost of thousands of serfs. There's so much warfare, there's so many wars as Russia tries to establish its dominance and push other forces out. That's a common thing for quite a while too, and at this point where this ends, with Catherine the Great, they really are beginning to reach out and create alliances. They had already had some for a little while, but she really emphasizes the need for them. Because Peter the Great, he wanted to westernize Russia, and that was probably one of the smartest things to do, because by westernizing Russia, they were less alienating to the European powers, which does help when you're trying to make allies with the European powers. They don't look down upon you culturally. Russia still maintained a very unique culture overall, but its aristocracy and its leadership appeared very Western, and much of its industry and everything like that, well, not really industry, but its economics and things were based more on Western ideals than anything else. So despite the uniqueness of Russian culture, they were able to sort of adopt a lot of the Western ideas and Western trends. But it's just interesting because it's like I said, there's so much dark stuff that goes on. So you've got these great cities being built, over the cost of thousands of lives, and you have just this sequence of leaders that don't last very long. Some die of illness, but others are mysterious circumstances or unfortunate accidents, and one being locked up for his entire life. This was typical for Russia. In Russian history, this is typical. When we see something like this happen in France or Britain or Spain, we're like, oh wow, that's crazy, that was a dark time. In Russia, this is the norm. This is how it always has been. As I was saying in the first video, the Russians always valued very strong leaders, and these strong leaders often did things that were considered brutal even for the time. But that's how they maintained power, that's how they maintained security of the state, that's how they expanded the Russian state, that's how they forged alliances and really forced the world to accept Russia for what it was, and forced the world to respect Russia, making them a global power by being this strong leader. And Catherine the Great, as we'll probably see in the next video, is one of those leaders. She's stronger than most of the leaders that Russia has ever had. She was amazing. And Peter the Great, they really don't emphasize him too much, just the changes he made, but he was another very strong leader. He was one that wasn't really quite as brutal, but he definitely came down harsh on people when he had to. He didn't spare the rod. He just wasn't as quick to violence or harsh reprisals as many other Russian leaders were. But as with any of the really strong leaders, he definitely would come down hard if he had to, and he did in certain instances. But anyway, yeah, these videos are really great. This is the second part of it. I'll be doing the next two parts. I've also already done the 1917 Russian Revolution video, so please check those out if you're interested. And stick around for the next two. If you like this video, please like and subscribe. If you have any other videos you want me to check out, please put in the comment section. I will check them out. I have a number of videos on deck right now, but I'm making a list of suggestions that I will be checking out once some of these other things have cleared out. I am not ignoring just because you don't see them out there right away. I'm not ignoring requests. I am keeping track of them. I have them written down, and I have them saved to check out in the near future. So please put stuff down there for me to check out. I'm very interested in new things. But on that note, I'm going to end the video there. Like I said, if you like the video, please like and subscribe, and I will see you next time.